Welcome back to Spelling and Word Study. My name is Mrs. Rhoades, and I'm here to get you started on Unit 10, Soft and Hard G. Please take a second to gather your materials. You will need your orange book, open to page 65. You'll also need some colorful pens, markers, or crayons. Remember, whatever I mark up on my board, you should be marking on your page. Please save room for a key as well. If it doesn't fit on this page, separate sheet of paper is fine. If at any point I'm moving too fast, please pause the video and catch up. All right, so last week we talked about the letter C. We reviewed the two sounds that C can make, the hard C, K, and the soft C, S. We discovered that soft C only appears before three letters, the E, the I, or the Y. Hard C shows up before the other vowels, A, O, and U, and several consonants like L and R, okay? Well, here's what's cool. This week we're learning about soft G, and guess what? The same pattern applies. So soft G says J, and it only shows up before the letters E, I, and Y. Hard G, G, shows up before everything else. The vowels A, O, and U, the consonants L, R, and S at the end of a word, okay? So we are going to review that today. But let's start by reading our words. And as we do, listen for a hard G that says G or a soft G that says J. Here we go. Bridge, change, cringe, gentle, guest, guide, guilty, guy, judge, magic, pledge, plunge, sponge, tragic, and trudge. Okay, lots of G and J in our words this week. So most of our words are one-syllable words, but we do have a couple two-syllable words. So let's go ahead and mark those. We have gentle, we have guilty, we have magic, and we have tragic. Okay, so over in our key, pink line equals syllable break. Now, when we break those four words into syllables, we notice some endings, some of our favorite endings that we've seen over and over again this year. The LE in gentle, the Y in guilty, and the IC in magic and tragic. So nothing new or tricky there. Okay, what I want you to do next is I want you to choose another color, and we're gonna find all the places where G is followed by E. So we see that in bridge, change, cringe, gentle, judge, pledge, plunge, sponge, and trudge. In all of these words, G is followed by E, and it makes a soft sound, okay? Bridge, change, cringe. Even at the beginning of a word, that GE is going to say J, although in this case it says J, right? Now, just like anything else, there are rule breakers. So if you look at the word get, that says get, right? The G is hard. That is a rule breaker. Most of the time, like look at the word gel, the G will be soft, okay? All right, let's choose another color. And this time, let's look for places where we have GI. So for instance, in the word magic and the word tragic. Anywhere we have a brown line, that is GI. Now, none of our words this week contain a GY, but if we had the word gym, or we had the word fudgy, like I love fudgy brownies, then GY would also be soft. So I'm just kind of adding these here. I know they're not part of our list. But the reason I want to add them is because just like last week, I want you to notice that anytime our letter is followed by E, I, or Y, it's going to be soft. Remember last week, if you flip back to last week, we did the same thing. C-E, C-I, C-Y were all soft C. Okay? Now last week we didn't have any hard C, but this week we do have some hard G because I want you to notice something weird. Look at, we have G-U in guest, G-U in guide, G-U in guilty, and G-U in Y. So in all of these words, we have G-U, which is hard. Okay, but what is the U doing there? Because the U doesn't make a sound. I hear the I sound, G-I'd, right? But if the U wasn't there, I'd probably pronounce it jied. If the U wasn't here, I would pronounce it jilty, because I've got the G-I. If the U wasn't here, I'd probably pronounce it jest, because I'd have the G and the E together. And if the U wasn't here, I would pronounce it jai. So in all these cases, that U is acting like a little buffer, okay? It's separating the G from the E, the G from the I, and the G from the Y, because we don't want those letters to be soft, okay? So that U is just keeping them apart. All right. What else do we need to talk about? Let's go back and look at all these words that end with a silent E. Most of the time, silent E jumps over the consonant, makes the vowel say its name, right? But that's not what's happening here. Bridge has a short I. So in this case, all that E is doing, it's softening the G. If we didn't have it, that word would say brittig, which would be weird, right? Right here, that E is softening the G, because without it, it would say chang. Now it says change. This softens the G, so it says cringe and not cring. This softens the G, so it says judge and not judga. Pledge instead of pledge. Plunge instead of plung. Sponge instead of spung. And trudge instead of trudga. Okay? So in all these cases, we have silent E softening. Silent E softens the G. Okay? It makes it say J. And the reason we have to have that there is because if we didn't have GE at the end, we'd have to put a J at the end of these words. And how weird would that be to look at the word bridge spelled like that, or the word change spelled like that? That would be so bizarre, because guess what? In our language, J never shows up at the end of a word. So anytime you're trying to spell a word and you hear a j sound at the end, chances are you're looking for GE, okay? Don't miss out on that D, okay? Bridge, where else? Bridge, judge, pledge, and trudge. Don't forget that D. Think of that DGE as a unit, okay? The three of them together are gonna make the J sound. And by the way, they're always gonna come after a short vowel. Short I, short U, short E, short U again. Okay, moving on. Oh, we don't have prefixes or suffixes or roots to talk about today, but when you get to page 68, you're gonna do an activity that's very similar to last week, except all of the words are gonna have G's in them, and you're gonna sort them by soft G or hard G. Okay, feel a sneeze coming on. Nope. All right, last thing. Let's make sure we know what all of our words mean. So a bridge, well, if you're trying to cross the water and you don't want to get wet, you're gonna have to go over a bridge, okay? A bridge crosses over a highway, a stream, or whatever. So change, remember, if you change things, you go the other way, you change your mind. Change can also be coins, though. Sometimes people keep change in their pocket. They pull out a handful of quarters and nickels and pennies. That would be change. When you cringe, you kind of like shrink back in embarrassment. Okay? It's like, ooh, I don't want to see that, right? Sometimes kids watch a movie and the characters start kissing and you're like, ooh, I don't want to see that, right? You cringe. So we cringe because we're embarrassed. Sometimes we cringe just because something makes us feel awkward or uncomfortable, okay? Gentle means soft and mild. Think about how you would handle a little baby, right? You'd be very soft and mild with the baby. A guest is a visitor, someone you invite to your home. A guide is a person who shows you the way. Person who shows you the way. So if you're taking a tour of an old house or you're going into a museum, you don't know your way around, so you're probably going to have a tour guide, someone who shows you the way. Guilty is the opposite of innocent, right? So if somebody gets charged with a crime, they go to court, and then the lawyers try to convince the jury that the person is guilty or innocent. So that's one kind of guilty, but also we feel guilty, right? So when we feel guilty, it means we feel bad because we know we did something wrong. Maybe we hurt someone's feelings, maybe we did something sneaky we weren't supposed to, and now we're feeling guilty. All right, guy is another word for a man or a boy. Right? We say, oh, he's a nice guy. Oh, have you met this guy? Right? A judge is a person who works in a courtroom and decides if a person is innocent or guilty. But all of us can judge things, right? Mom makes something new for dinner and we taste it and we judge it. Ooh, this is delicious, or this doesn't taste good, right? We watch a movie, we read a book, and we judge it. We decide. A judge is the decider. Okay, magic, that stuff that doesn't happen in real life, right? A pledge is a promise. Think about the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag. It means I promise to be loyal to my country. When you plunge, you go deep into the water. So here's the water. If you jump off the diving board, you're going to not land on the top. You're going to go deep into the water. Okay, so sometimes if you're washing dishes and you have like a sink full of soapy water, you're going to have to plunge your hands into that water to pull out the spoons and the forks. A sponge, that's something we use to clean our counters or wash dishes. Tragic means very, very sad. Okay, so when we hear about a 95-year-old person who died, that's sad, right? Especially if it's somebody we knew, we're gonna feel bad, right? But if we ever heard about a 5-year-old dying or a 19-year-old dying, that's tragic, right? It's sudden, it's unexpected, and it's very painful to hear about, okay? So we hear about tragic deaths, tragic accidents, that sort of thing. And then the last word, trudge. If you trudge, you walk with heavy feet. You walk with heavy feet, okay? So if you're playing out in the snow and you've got your big snow boots on, you're gonna trudge through the snow, right? If you're just really, really tired, too tired to walk, you're gonna trudge home. Okay, so when you trudge, you walk, but you're having a hard time lifting your feet. All right, that's all I have for you guys today. Good luck, and I will see you next time.